Hey everybody, welcome to the Leek. I'm John as always, and weekly news update hasn't been around for a couple of weeks. I usually skip it when we're doing set reviews because that's on a Sunday, and pre-release recaps because that's on a Sunday, and usually it's not that big of a deal. Not much news happens, and there's no story time usually, but this set has a huge story, something like 12 story time, so we actually did miss 2 stories. So this is going to be a quick one-time video on a Wednesday to catch up on the stories that we missed, as well as the story that came out today actually. So settle on in. We're going to skip the news. There wasn't really anything that big that happened anyways the past 2 weeks, and we're going to go over the last 3 stories that have happened. Starting first where we left off with episode 5, I'm still kind of annoyed they don't have titles, but episode 5 we start with Ajani meeting with Joyra and the crew of the Weatherlight. Ajani tells Joyra that he and his planeswalker friends are assembling to defeat Bolas, and that the Gatewatch are meeting him here on Dominaria. Probably right away, right? Without any side trips. Ajani also reveals to Joyra that Karn has been rescued from New Phyrexia and has returned to Dominaria, and that Venser gave up his spark and died to rescue him. Both pieces of news visibly shake Joyra. Joyra decides that she needs to find Karn, but first, they'd better go meet Ajani's friends. The remaining Gatewatch, only Gideon and Liliana of course, travel to Benalia City after defeating Josu at the Caligo Morass. They're briefly stopped by Lyra, who denies Liliana's entry to the city, being a necromancer. However, after being presented with a letter from the Battle Angel from their previous battle, she does allow their passage. The pair travel to the city, find the highest tower, as Ajani had said they needed to meet in mid-air for some reason. The reason, of course, is that Ajani is aboard the Weatherlight, which Liliana and Gideon board, and immediately an argument starts as Ajani realizes that Jace, Chandra, Nissa aren't there. Ajani is extremely angry that they went to Amonkhet, and due to their defeat there, feels that they simply can't defeat Bolas now. Gideon tells Ajani of their plan to destroy Belzenlok, freeing Liliana's true power, and Ajani refuses to help them, and tells them that he needs to leave and go find some more planeswalkers to actually join the battle against Bolas, and leaves the plane. The group decides their best bet to defeating Belzenlok is to find a Cabal agent to draw information from, which Raph explains Talaria West has been having issues finding agents in their midst, so they travel off to the Talarian Academy. There they meet Joda, Joyra's ex-lover, and Naban, Dean of Iteration, when they arrive, and sure enough, there have been Cabal issues, most recently involving the murder of 9 students. The crew are taken to the corpses, who Liliana interrogates, but finds nothing of use. After discussing the events that led to this and the bodies being taken to this tower, they realize that the agent's plan was to actually gain access to this room that the bodies were taken to, and they do find a living student, apparently, in that room, who quickly reveals themselves to be a Cabal agent and attacks them, but is detained. Raph offers to assist in the interrogation with a thought-stealing spell that is apparently forbidden to all but Master Mages, and somehow Raph knows it. The interrogation is successful and information is found about the Black Blade, the blade that killed an Elder Dragon, the blade that in the first episode of the story was brought to the stronghold for Belzenlok. It is a blade that could certainly kill Belzenlok and likely even kill Bolas. Getting into the stronghold won't be tricky, but they could do it by stopping time, and Joyra happens to know a time mage. Episode 6 starts out with a time mage named Teferi with his daughter Niambi camping in the desert. The pair are descending into a monument that they've been exploring for quite some time. It's filled with traps and puzzles that change every time they enter it, and they've been trying to crack its mysteries and reach what's kept inside for some time to no avail. Once more they travel inside the monument, fend off the self-replicating automatons, poison needle traps, and they reach the final puzzle which they've failed to solve. Niambi believes that she understands at this time that it's a mathematical equation, but again, they just can't crack it and have to leave the monument to camp once again. The monument, the puzzles, the artifact, they were left by Urza and are being protected from Teferi. The pair discusses Urza and how he had no friends, only test experiments, and rarely people who he might consider as sentient beings. And even though he would have known that Teferi would need the artifact in this monument, he created deadly puzzles and traps specifically to stop him. The pair are interrupted, however, by the approach of the Weatherlight and the arrival of its crew. The crew explains their need of a time mage to retrieve the Black Blade and agree to a trade of their services to help Teferi crack the puzzles of this monument. Teferi tells the newer crew members about Zulfir, his home. When the Phyrexian invasion was coming, he knew that Zulfir would be its first target due to its magic, military, high level of advancement compared to the rest of the plane. Urza had even planned for it to be the first target. Teferi knew the city would fall, and to protect it, he phased it out of existence. The Phyrexians wouldn't be able to reach it, but the Zulfirin wouldn't be able to reach Dominaria again either. He did the same to the island of Shiv, but he was able to repair that during the time spiral events, but he had to use his spark to do it. And so as a result, he can't return Zulfir. Finding the artifacts that Urza left behind should help him actually accomplish that. Teferi, Niambi, and some members of the Weatherlight crew again descend into the monument as Joyra is certain that Niambi is correct about the puzzle, but that there must be more variables meant to stop Teferi. Sure enough, with Liliana in the monument, she's able to see that there are spirits that Teferi would never have seen, and their positions in the crypt are the final key to the puzzle, which reveals an artifact, a dark crystal orb in a cage of silver vines with lights like a captured star field inside of it. Teferi takes the artifact, and of course Urza, being a sore loser, has clearly trapped the monument to be destroyed after the puzzles are cracked. The crew desperately escapes the monument just in time to the Weatherlight as the monument is completely destroyed. Teferi leaves Niambi safely behind at the camp and joins the crew to defeat Belzenlach. Later that evening, Joyra is thinking about the amulet that she has around her neck. It contains a power stone that she forged at the Thrawn mana rig. It's a power stone she made that holds Teferi's planeswalker spark. The hard part, she thinks, is going to be convincing him to take it back. With that, we move on to episode 7, which was published today, in a flashback to some years after the mending, so a fair bit of time from present time. Teferi has traveled to the Zulfirin Void, the place where Zulfir once stood before Teferi phased it out. Teferi, walking through a market in a nearby town of Sewa, meets Subira and Kwande. Subira tells him that he was waiting for a man named Maquette, right? But Teferi assures them that he must not be the Teferi that they think he is. The pair push him, however, telling him that Maquette is a man who was killed with magic in their camp, and had said he was coming to meet a Teferi. He refuses to admit to them that he's a mage, but agrees to take a look at the body, which has shown no actual signs of death. Subira and Kwande take Teferi to the caravan and Maquette's body. Teferi finds Maquette has had his life stolen and suspended in a way to appear as though it was time magic without actually being time magic. Teferi tells Subira and Kwande that were he to kill someone, it certainly wouldn't be with time magic since it takes effort, it can't be held indefinitely, and it is quite obvious. He wasn't the one who killed Maquette, despite the initial assumption by Subira and Kwande that he was. Maquette's belongings are retrieved to look for clues as to why he was going to meet Teferi, as the newest theory is that he was there to kill Teferi. Subira tells him that she doesn't believe that he's just a Teferi. He must be the Teferi, the destroyer of Zulfir. Subira tells Teferi that she doesn't fear him or hate him. She has read about the Phyrexian invasion. She understands why he did what he did and agrees with it. They're interrupted, however, by the approach of a massive, clearly magically induced sandstorm. Teferi protects the caravan by creating a time bubble. He struggles to keep it, but it does eventually collapse just as the storm does begin to dissipate, however. The caravan saved is, however, quickly approached by people from a nearby town who believe that someone in the caravan summoned that storm to destroy the city, of which, of course, Teferi is accused. He's defended by members of the group, however, telling the approaching group that he was the one who protected them. Subira realizes that Kwande left the group before the storm, and he must be the one that alerted the people in the town to come here. He must be the one who is after Teferi. Subira convinces Teferi to run, but he is quickly stopped by Kwande. Kwande calls him a traitor, a destroyer. Subira defends Teferi, demanding that Kwande kill her if he wants to get to Teferi. Kwande pauses as Teferi and the caravan hastily pack up to leave and asks why she's doing this for Teferi, to which she tells him she's doing it for both of them. The caravan with Teferi, who agrees to travel with them for a while, leaves. A few years later, Teferi is raising Nyambi, his and Subira's daughter. Subira and Teferi settled down long enough to have her, but Subira returned again to the caravan, visiting regularly when she can. As Nyambi is running around, she begins to trip, and Teferi instinctively casts a time bubble around her. He circles her, looks for anything sharp or hard in her path, but she'll simply fall into the grass and get a few bruises. He once had a choice to let Zelfir face the Phyrexian invasion and perhaps be destroyed, but much of Dominaria had survived, and so it could have as well, but he instead chose to protect it and phase it out, pausing the city and everyone inside of it for currently ever. He could do the same to Nyambi. He could protect her and stop her from falling at all costs, but protecting her would cost her freedom and her growth. For now, he decides a compromise is in order, and he does catch her as he lets her fall as the spell ends. And that's going to wrap it up for our Storytime Catch-Up. Because we reviewed today's story, we actually won't do it in the news video this weekend, and they will be coming back every Sunday from now on, but we'll be back to Storytime the weekend after that. Yeah, I'm loving this story. It's extremely well written. It's interesting. I really loved that final Teferi flashback, getting to kind of see what he's been up to since the mending. Let me know what you think of these stories. I'm really excited to get my hands on the art book of Dominaria. It comes out in July, because it usually has a ton of lore. I really need to review those art books at some point. For those who haven't seen them, they are incredible. They are not just art. There is just as much lore and text and background and etc. as there is actual art in those books. But yeah, let me know what you think of these stories in the comments down below. As always, if you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, you can find me on Twitter at TheManaLeek. That's L-E-E-K, like the vegetable, not the card. You can find me at Facebook.com/TheManaLeek, Twitch.tv/TheManaLeek, and Patreon.com/TheManaLeek. If you like the content, click that thumbs up button. Click subscribe if you want to see more. And if you do have questions, comments, or suggestions, let me know. Otherwise, see y'all next time.